All right, how you doing? Getting excited to get in here and get to some of the meat of this and talk about passing the PMP exam? Good, because that's what we're going to discuss in this lecture. We're going to look at some test passing strategies, how to pass the PMP. So first thing we want to do is create a cheat sheet. I think this is something that probably most people have the idea of. When you go in to pass the exam, you have the 15-minute tutorial. Take that time and jot down your notes. So write down all the formulas and facts that you want to recall at a glance. Because if you have it in front of you, it makes it so much easier to answer the questions. I recommend on your little cheat sheet that you jot down during that tutorial in the actual testing center. I'm not talking about smuggling in something to cheat. Of course, you can't do that. So write down the formulas and facts for things like earned value management, the time value of money, the formula for build or buy, your execution, initiating and closing facts, or anything that you struggle with, because that's what you're going to be tested on the most. So create a little cheat sheet that you can just look right down, and there's all of your key notes or key formulas or facts. As you move through the exam, the majority of the test questions will be scenario based. So it'll tell a little story, and then you have to choose the best answer. When you have a really long test question, go and read the last part of it first. So read the question first, because maybe all of this backstory has nothing to do with the actual answer you choose. So a lot of times the backstory is just fluff. Focus on what the question is asking. So don't be persuaded by this backstory. Answer the question. And then if you are tricked or you don't know for certain, use the highlighter and highlight some keywords or phrases that may help you discern which answer is best. My favorite approach for taking an exam is process of elimination. Elimination. So what I like to do is I used to write out on a piece of paper A, B, C, D, and then as I read the question, if I knew one wasn't right, then I would mark out, okay, I knew it can't be C, so now I have a 1 in 3 shot of getting this question right, or guessing. And then I would do the same thing and try to narrow it down to just 2 choices. And then I would look at the question and then read those answers. And based on the answer, would it make that question false? Would it be make the question prove it to be wrong? So this helps you improve your odds of answering a question correctly. Do not leave an answer or a question in the exam. Don't leave one blank. Anything blank is counted as wrong. So if you don't know, just guess. My personal favorite way to guess, if you don't know, choose the longest answer. Because sometimes when you write a test question, you have to account for all allowances. So you have to rule out any assumptions, and that makes the answer longer. Now, I'm not saying that will work every time. That probably won't work every time. But if I don't know if I have to guess, I'll just choose the longest answer. Now, I know you won't have to guess because you are going to go in and pass this exam. You're going to knock this out. All right, exam passing techniques. Choose a time of the day that works for you. So if you're studying always in the morning or you're studying in the afternoon, schedule your exam for the same time that you've been studying. So your brain is used to this is study time and this is now test time. So let those sync up in your schedule. I encourage people to not overstudy. Sometimes you get so immersed in a topic that it all begins to swim together. So don't study more than like 3 or 4 hours a day. Really, probably 2 hours is fine. But as you go in, I know you go into cram, you're nervous and anxiety. Really limit your studying time to like 3 hours max. And that's really a lot. 4 hours may be a little crazy even. In the days leading up to the exam, and I know we should do this always, but sleep and eat healthy foods. So get plenty of sleep, and then eat healthy foods so you feel good and you have energy, and you can go in there and knock out the exam. Show up early, like I mentioned, 20 to 30 minutes early, and take that time to calm down. do some breathing exercises, whatever it takes, but take that time to calm your nerves. Be confident. On the way to the testing center, whenever I'm taking an exam, I talk to myself. Nobody else is in the car, so I'll talk to myself and I'll say, Joe, you got this. You can do this. You've studied. You've done the work. You know what you're doing. You're a good-looking, confident man. You can go in there and knock out this test. And so then when I get into the testing center, if I get kind of rattled, which happens, and you may experience this as well, then I just pause and I remind myself, Joe, you've done the work, you studied, be confident. It's one question out of 200 questions. Answer it and move on. So don't get rattled, because when you get rattled, when you start getting anxious or doubting yourself, then it's going to bleed over from question to question. So if you find that's the case, pause, give yourself a little pep talk, and then go in and continue moving forward in the exam. In the testing center, they will give you either some headphones. They might be just sitting on the partition between you and the next person taking a test, or they might give you some little earphones or some earplugs. And I recommend you use those. I don't want any distractions. So if those are available, I recommend you use them. I like peace and quiet. I suspect you do as well. And then take a break every 50 questions, so you can take a break. Now, some people say 100 questions, that's fine, but do what works for you. I like to take one every 50 questions. I answer 50 questions, and then I get up, leave the testing center, go to the restroom or get a drink of water, and just move around. I've been sitting there for probably 40, 45 minutes, so I need to take a break, get the blood flowing again, walk away from that horrible test, and come back to it renewed and continue on in the next 50 questions. So that's 50 questions. There's 200 questions. You can do the math. What happens if you get a really tough question? Well, you're going to get lots of tough questions on this exam. So when you get a really tough question, you want to look at, all right, one, do you know the answer? It might be a tough question, but you just may be that prepared, and I hope you are, that you just know the answer. So tough question, click it, go. But what if you don't know the answer? Are there two of the answers that are correct? So sometimes what happens in a test is we'll have four choices. One is just the throwaway. Has nothing to do with the other four questions, the odd man out. Sometimes the odd man out's the one you want, so pay attention to that. But most of the time, no, you throw that one away. Then you'll have one that's just a distraction, that if you didn't read the question properly or closely, you might gravitate towards that choice. And then you'll have two that are similar. So look at those two that are similar. Chances are it's one of those two. Find the one that's most correct. So really compare the two answers and think about what the question is asking for and what the answer is providing. Now, you will have some weird test questions, I guarantee it. So a weirdo question could be a seated question. So that's one thing to consider. May not even count towards your score, but you won't know. Think about what the question is asking. So look at the question and what's it really asking. Does it qualify any of the answers? Of course, one of the four answers will be the correct one. If you look at the answers, do you recognize the answers? Do you recognize the terms? So for example, let's say you're taking a test and the question uses a term that you've never heard of before. I'll just make something up. It uses the proxy analysis. There is no proxy analysis. I just made that up. So it says, what happens if you're a PM and you're using a proxy analysis? Total bogus term. This is a scenario. Don't write that down. So you say, well, I've never heard of proxy analysis before. So you look at your choices to choose. And it says quality control is inspection driven. Well, that's true. And then it says risk identification is iterative. That's true. And then it says Hertzberg's theory uses motivating agents. All right, that's true. And then it says something like I'm trying to make up something that goes, so let's say it uses the risk is always identified within 30 days. All right, well, I have no idea what that means. I just made that up. So You might say, well, I know these three things. I'm familiar with these three terms. I understand quality, I understand risk analysis, I understand Hertzberg, but I've never heard this idea of risk identification in 30 days. So if I've never heard that term, I'm going to look for an answer choice that I've never heard of either. So those two are a match. So I know it was kind of a weird walkthrough, but my point being, if you get those weirdo questions, just slow down and try to eliminate the ones that you know and try to look for a match based purely on your intuition and deduction of what the other answers may be. If you don't know, guess. If you don't know, guess. So that's always I won't say a safe bet, but it's safer than leaving it blank. You might also jot it down on your scratch sheet of paper. Like this is question 36. It was weird, called process analysis or analysis proxy or whatever it was. And then as you move through the test, you might see that term again, and that can help you answer the previous question. Having said that, I recommend that you don't change your answers. Most people, when I teach a PMP bootcamp live, we take lots of the test questions in the course, and most people end up changing their answers from correct to wrong. So I recommend, unless you're really, really sure, do not change an answer. All right, good job. Just a quick walkthrough about some advice for your exam. Let's keep moving forward.